Ready to Love, Season 4, Episode 12, which is One Last Assignment. So, y'all, the episode was really good. I really enjoyed it. So, this is the episode where all the ladies meet the families of the men. And so, this video is going to be about Sydney and Phil. And I'm going to do videos for the other couples. So, this is just going to be about Sydney and Phil with a little bit of Frank sprinkled in because there was some crossover with Sydney and Frank versus Sydney with Phil because we didn't know who she was going to choose. Well, they tried to make us know who she wasn't going to choose, but I already knew she was going to choose Phil. So anyway, I might mention Frank a little bit in here only because they did. But first of all, the episode opens up with Sydney and Phil having to meet. So they meet up and, of course, Sydney walks in on 10, sexy on 10. She going to present the package. Sydney knows how to present a package. So she comes and she's meeting Phil for a little sit down talk. And, she's got on her lime green dress. She got a lime green, she has a green dress on. She got a green drink in her hand. She presented the whole package to Phil. And so they're there just sitting. So then all of a sudden, Sydney says, we got to be serious for a couple of minutes. And you got to pick up on that because what she's saying is most of the time they have a fun. They're having fun together. That means most of the time they're keeping it light. They're not talking about such serious subjects. And I always think that's why Phil liked her in the beginning because she keeps it light. It's not heavy for them. So she did say, we got to be serious just for a couple of minutes. And he says, yeah, I know. Because they got to discuss this Shiloh thing that happened last week. And so, Phil gets to sort of tell his side of the story, a shortened version of it, of what happened. And basically, Phil was like, sorry, but not sorry. He's like, what? In the end, he's sorry that Shiloh felt the way she did and that, her feelings were hurt or whatever else was hurt. But in the end, he's basically saying he would have done the same thing over because at that moment, the safety of Shiloh was paramount and he still would have picked her up and put her in the car. And, Sydney, as usual, was understanding. And she was like, what? I understand, boo. And she's like, I always have known you as being kind and caring and gentle. And that's what I liked about Sydney. Sydney actually even handled Shiloh really well the last time. She was able to listen to Shiloh's story and have a level of empathy for her. Even if it wasn't what she believed in Phil, she still had a level of empathy for Shiloh. But in the end, even when she's sitting here with Phil, she also understood him and she was able to show up and be supportive to him as well. And so, Phil was, of course, very relieved that was the response of Sydney because, he really liked Sydney. You could tell he really liked Sydney. And so he didn't want the whole Shiloh debacle to mess up what he knew he was forming or what was growing with him and Sydney. So that went well. And so after that, the scene switches to back with the whole group. And this is when Tommy comes in with his Capistrol. These Kappa men, they love attention. But anyway, nephew Tommy comes in with his Capistrol, and this is when he starts to tell everybody, hey, what, you're going to have to meet. The women are now going to meet the families of the men. So if you remember, Sydney is still on the fence, supposedly, on the fence between Frank and Phil. So she's going to end up having to meet both families. And so, of course, Phil is like nervous because he's nervous because he likes Sydney. I already know this. So he talks about how he's nervous and he's like, ooh, my family be messing up stuff. So he's not for sure, if meeting the family is going to mess up things with him and Sydney or not. But nonetheless, so Phil ends up introducing Sydney to his cousin and his aunt, two females, his cousin and his aunt. So when Sydney comes in, she says, ooh, I'm nervous. Every time Sydney comes around Phil, she says the first thing, ooh, I'm so nervous. I'm telling you, Sydney knows how to reel men in and she knows how to make men feel. I'm telling you, any woman having trouble attracting men. So there's a lot of parts to get married, but the first part is attraction. If any woman is having trouble how to reel a man in and attract a man, they need to watch the footage of Sydney because she does a lot of things right. It's just not about all the sexy clothes she wears. You have to really pay attention to the things she says and the things she does. And that is what makes and reels men in. So anyway, soon as she starts to meet the cousin and the cousin and the aunt, the first thing Sydney does is she compliments the ladies and she says, oh, you guys are so beautiful. There it is. I don't know what industry Sydney is in. She's definitely in some type of customer service type environment, because you can tell she knows how to put people at ease. So first off the bat, she comes in and she compliments the ladies. So they sit down and they start talking to Sydney, and they're like, "Oh, you're beautiful too." And they ask Sydney a question about, why Phil, is he the only one? And Sydney was honest. She told the ladies that, hey, you know what? It is between Frank and it is between Phil. But she said one of the things that she liked about Phil is that he was her, what did she say? Her calm and peaceful place. And I actually get that, because I think that Sydney is in a world, the nightclub world, that is fast paced and blah, blah, boom, boom, boom. And I think Phil offers something different. And I think that's why Frank ends up being the friend. I think Frank is too close to her job, too much of what she does, that nightlife. And I think that she wants something different at home. And I think that is one of the differences between Phil and Frank. And so anyway, she says he's her peaceful place. The other reason why I know that, Sydney is way more into Phil than Frank is because whenever she is with Phil, this girl may have a drink, but she barely eats. And if she does eat, she's eating very sort of daintily. When she is with Frank, she is shoving food in her mouth. She don't care what she's eating. She eating with her food in her mouth. And that, to me, these are little signs, because when you're with a guy and you're nervous, and she's talking about her butterflies, you can't be eating because you're so nervous. But when she is with Frank, she's comfortable. It's like sitting down with your girlfriends. Like, you could care less if you're talking with a bunch of food in your mouth. That was always another sign that Sydney has a level of butterflies and uncomfortableness, nervousness with Phil, and it's a good nervousness. The other part with Frank was like almost like, I don't have nothing to lose. So anyway, the next scene, you start to see Sydney meet like Frank and his family. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, because you know what, it was nothing. It was filler. I already knew that Sydney was not going to choose Frank. But anyway, Sydney did meet Frank's cousins, and you know what, it was nice. It was cordial. Sydney up there eating stuff in her mouth, because for her, I know it's all formalities. And, she's asking a few questions about Frank just to seem like she's interested. And I know she's not really interested. And, it was interesting because at the end of the little dinner or whatever that Sydney was, the relatives of Frank said that, they had met both at this time. They had met Mumin and they had met Sydney, and they were saying that they really liked Sydney's personality more than Mumin's, but they said that who would make more of like a wife type, and they said that was Mumin. But what they did say to Frank was, it just depends on how each person makes you feel, which I'm going to come back to that. But anyway, in the end, the last scene is when we still don't know who Sydney's going to choose. Is it going to be Frank or is it going to be Phil? So they show Sydney sitting down on a park bench on the water, and they show both, cutting back and forth to a scene of both Frank and Phil walking up, and we don't know who's going to meet her. And in the end, of course, it's Phil who shows up with a rose, and, they sort of embrace and all of that other kind of stuff. So here's the part that's so interesting, guys. So when they meet, they each give their little speech. And the speech that Phil gave was, he said to Sydney, he told Sydney that he loves the way she speaks life into him. And that when he is at his lowest point, lowest moment, she lifts him up. And I want everybody to listen to that. Because what he's saying that he's talking about the difference between wanting a person and needing a person. And when you're going to be with a partner, wanting someone is not enough. You actually really need to need that person. And that's what men want. And so what happens is, what Phil is starting to talk about is not just about Sydney's sex appeal, and not just about, what she's going to do for him physically and all that. He's starting to talk about that for him to be in a happy place, for him to feel a certain kind of way, it is Sydney who makes him feel that way. And that's what a lot of people don't get about what men are looking for. Men are looking for women who make them feel a certain kind of way, who make them feel like these wonderful kings or whatever else you want to call it. So anyway, he started, and it's a real deficit out here of that. When you think about what people are looking for in their life, they're not looking for people to give them something. People have stuff already. They're looking for people who make a difference in their life, who uplift them, who who, when the world is beating you down, this is the person you can go to who's going to speak life into you. And that's what he talks about. And so he was really nervous because, you know, he just didn't know what Sydney was going to say. He didn't know if Sydney was going to say yes or not. And then when Sydney got to speak, she basically said that, you know, when she met him and even now, how much she's grown to care about him. She talked about it was clear that she was going to choose him. And then, you know, they mentioned this whole thing about even talking to you on the phone for 2 hours. And if you remember, both Phil's ex-girlfriend and even Shiloh and we're talked about how Phil doesn't communicate. And now here you have Sydney who's talking about, man, he wants to talk on the phone for 2 and 3 hours and she barely can get him off the phone. And that tells you when a man needs you, listen, he's going to be where he's going to be where he's getting fed. And basically Phil, I guess, is opening up to her and talking to her like he doesn't talk to other people. And that tells you he has a level of comfortability with her. So I'm really hopeful that these two make it. I hope this isn't the end. I hope that off camera, they actually do really well together. We'll see. The reunion is next week. We'll see if they're still together. But I feel really, really good about these two. I think that they're a good match. So that's it for now. Be sure to check out my other videos of the other couples because I'm going to contrast Sydney with Wumeen and also Aisha, who I don't know. I'm going to contrast those two in terms of, you know, how they relate to men and what the individual men said that they were looking for and what changed it for those men, because I think it is very clear in these videos or in this episode how men and women are thinking differently when they're approaching getting together, and when it doesn't line up, you don't come together. But I think in this particular situation, Sydney was coming with something that Phil needed, not coming with something that Phil may want or that he can get anywhere out there. Now, yes, she brings the sexy, she brings sex appeal. That reels him in, that gets him in the door. But what she ended up selling him on has nothing to do with sex. So anyway, watch my other videos. I'll talk to you later. Bye.